The process of exposing Eidim to be Eidim Zomimim is well known. A second set of Eidim testify that at the time at which the first pair of Eidim claimed they witnessed the event, they were all together at a totally different location. Had the second Eidim simply contradicted the testimony of the first, we would have had a case of 2 against 2, trey v'trey, a standoff. By rights, the second set of eidus using imanu hayisem should have reduced to just another case of akasha, where one set of Eidim contravened and challenged the other's testimony, and we would again be left with a standoff. However, they are believed over the first set by a special gzeres hakosuf, which is a chiddush not in line with the usual rules of eidus that prevail in the Torah. Normally, Eidim that are found to be Zomimim receive the punishment of kasher zoma. They receive the judgment they plan to have the victim undergo. However, if Eidim testify that a particular kohen is a cholol, a ben grusha, and then they were found to be Zomimim, they do not receive the usual kasher zoma, even if they're kahanim, but rather they are given a malkis instead. This is the first Mishnah in Maseches Malkis. The same is true if Edim Zomimim testified that a person killed b'shogeg and he committed manslaughter. The Eidim are not consigned to Golus. That would have been, and they were found to be Zomimim, and the Eidim are not consigned to Golus because that would have been kasher zoma mamish, but rather they receive a set of malkis. These and a few other exceptions are a result of psukim that specially exempt these cases. There is a matter of controversy in the case where the Eidim falsely accused the kohen of being a ben chluza. The Ritva and the Ramban in the beginning of Malkis write that in the case of falsely testifying that a kohen's child is a ben chluza, there is no malkis. For a child that a kohen has from a chluza is not really a cholol, and is only pasal midrabanan. Since there is no such psul in the Torah, there is no zamam lasos to do anything d'oraisa, hence there will not be an einish of malkis. The Mishnah was not being exact when it employed the phrase ben chalutza. It is just common use to put it together with ben grusha. The Rambam, however, in eidus perik chaf Ches writes that there will indeed be a malkis for falsely testifying that one is a ben chluza. We need to know the basis for this machlokes. As an aside, if there is a malkis for eidus ben chluza, like the Rambam says, that means that without the pasuk of loy v'loy l'zaroi, if we were to have given kasher zamam, we would carry out a kasher zamam and make the Edim Zomimim into bnei chalutza. Then there would be a din deraisa to generate a psul darabonim. Very curious. Back to the machlokes. We refer to a machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban whether there is an isur deraisa to disobey an isur derabonim. The Rambam in Sefer Mitzvah Sharashal states that the pasuk in Dvorim Perkei Zayin, pasuk Yud Aleph, Lo Saser, is a lav for transgressing an Isur D'Rabbanan. If you are over an Isur D'Rabbanan, you are over the lav in the Torah of Lo Saser. Even though it's not an Isur Torah. Even though it's not an Isur Torah, what the Chachamim prohibit, they do so, according to the Rambam, they do so by the power of the Torah. And as a result of this ruling, the Rambam holds that a Chacham that opposes the Sanhedrin in a case of an Isur D'Rabbanan is classified as a Zaknim Mamre. And this is in particular in regard to the Isur of Chametz and Erev Pesach, Lachash Shas, because the end of that pasuk, the next pasuk in of Lo Saser, is talking about what if a chacham comes along and says and does not agree. The pasuk is talking about the Sanhedrin, the Beis Din Gadol, promulgated a din derabanan, or a din that you're chayiv lo yisasser for. So according to Rambam, it means an issur derabanan. And then there's a chacham that does not agree, and he continues to paskin there is no such thing. For example, he says that chametz after sheish shos is muter b'hano. We hold it's asur b'hano midrabanan, but according to midrash, it's not. It's muter b'hano. So what if he were to come and say, you know what? If you used chametz after sheish shos to be mekadosh an isha, it's a good to kedushin, and she's chayiv, and she's an eishes isha. She needs a get. We would hold that vibalt the chamim. This would be according to everybody. Vibalt the chamim made an issur hano of chametz after sheish shos, then the chametz didn't have any value, wasn't a pruta, and wasn't a good to kedushin. So if this chacham continues to go against the full Sanhedrin, he's considered a zaken mamre. That's according to the Rambam. The Ramban disagrees. The Ramban, he holds there is no lav of lo yisasser for an issur derabanan. If you're over an issur derabanan, you're not over an issur deraisa at all. What was lo yisasser referring to? He interprets the lav of lo yisasser it's referring to an issur Torah that is found only in Torah Shebaal Peh. Or, for example, it's only known to us by Halacha Moshe Sinai. Halacha Moshe Sinai, there's absolutely no hint from the pasuk. It's a Messiah, straight Baal Peh. And if the Chacham, if the Beis Din paskins there is such a Halacha Moshe Sinai, and the Chacham doesn't agree to the Sanhedrin, and he keeps on to his own, and he paskins against the Sanhedrin, then and only then is he a zaken mamra. But if he talks about an issur derabanan, there is no zaken mamra if the argument is over an issur derabanan. We find a machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid in a different matter, different din, but actually it's over the same issue. In the case of a saita who's to drink the mayim marim, a man was makana his wife that she was mizana, and she's now going to have to drink the mayim marim. The din is the waters will not be baidik if the husband has committed an issur biyah. The water is only baidik if the husband is menuka mi'avai. He's free of an issur biyah. Now the Ram states that this includes any one of the 21 shniyas that are muter midaraisa but are also midrabanan. There are relatives that are not also midaraisa. For example, if you go up the line in Isha and Bita, it's only 3 dairas, but if midrabanan there's another door, and so on. If he was mizana with one of them, then he's not menuka ma'avai according to the Rambam. But in Hilchos Sait, the Parak Beis, we find that the Ravid disagrees, and he holds that since the Shniyas relatives are all only midrabanan, then the waters are still baidik, and even if he was mizana with one of them, the Ravid is of the same opinion as the Ramban. We can see that an issur derabanan has no standing in the Torah, hence the husband will still be called menuka ma'avai. We can argue that this same issue is the machlokes, whether there will be a malkis for eidus ben grusha that were found to be Eidim Zomimim. The Rambam holds that there is an issur min Torah of lo yisasser to marry a chluza. If the Rabbanan said a chluza is like a grusha, then it's an issur midrabanan, and an issur midrabanan is, if you're ever an issur midrabanan, then you're ever lo yisasser. Hence, the offspring is a chalal. And even though he's only puzzle midrabanan, yet such a chol has a standing midaraisa. He's midaraisa puzzle dika midrabanan. Therefore, Edim's testimony created an adverse effect minatayra on the victim, even though it was not true. but they got Bezdin to paskin that he was a ben chluza, and they will be subject to the punishment of asisim like kasher zomim lasis la'achiv. And here's the case of you can't do that, so you give malkis. In the view of the Ramban, however, there is no psul of ben chluza in the Torah. For Midaraisa, is a kain kasher, and a basel ben chluza has no standing in the Torah. Hence, the Edim didn't act to produce any adverse effect on the Edim, so there is no kasher zomim, and there won't be any malkis. We find another case of Edim Zomimim who do not receive malkis. The Gemara in Malkis Daf Beis Amud Beis cites a brisa in the case of Edim who testified that someone's shore killed a man three times in a row, not the same, killed men, three instances. And therefore the owner is chayav to pay kaifer. But then these Edim were found out to be Zomimim. The brisa states that kasher zomim is not given, and the Rambam writes that the Edim will not pay, but they'll get a malkis instead, just like by Ben Grusha, just like by Golis. The Ramban argues is that there will be no kaifer payment and no malkis given to the Edim Zomimim. Now, this Ramban is in Gemara Daf Beis Amud Beis. He's brought down by the Ritva, Divrei Hamaskal, Tanarabon at the end. Now, this can no longer be, this difference between the Rambam and the Ramban can no longer be a result of their machlekes regarding Leisaser. Kaifer has nothing to do with Leisaser. Therefore, there must be another issue in dispute. Even though the previous interpretation is a true breakdown of the machlekes Rambam and Ramban, whether Edim ben chluza receive a malkis or not, when they're found to be Zomimim, it can be shown that no matter what view one has about the standing of an Issa D'Rabbanan in the Torah, the machlekes, whether there is a malkis for Edim b'nei chluza, is part of a wider division among the Rishonim as to what exactly is the aveira and mechayev of Edim Zomimim. 1. Is it the conspiracy to adversely affect the victim, the plan that almost accomplished harm to the nodin? Just that the Torah qualifies that not just any conspiracy by itself is enough to fault the perpetrators. They do not deserve a kasher zomim just for their intention to harm, but until they have testified falsely and misled Bezdin into believing their testimony and caused Bezdin to pass a mistaken, untrue judgment against the victim, a gemar din, a false gemar din. If there wasn't a false gemar din, even though they were conspired, that's not enough. Or do we say 2? This is the second side of the Chakira, of what the mechayev is. Perhaps the actual aveira is the eidus sheker, the false testimony. Not more, not what was going to happen, just the falsha eidus. However, the false testimony in itself would not be enough to prescribe the penalty. Then we need a condition for the einish of kasher zomim, and that is that the falsehood advanced to the point that Bezdin handed down an unjust judgment upon the nodin. To sum it up, is it the hazama or the eidus sheker? And in both cases, on the condition that there was a gemar din by Bezdin, a decision that was based on the false testimony. It is possible to explain the machlekes whether there is a malkis, even if all were to agree to the Ramban that there is no lav for transgressing an Isser D'Rabbanan. We suggest that if the mechayev of einish kasher zomim is simply the eidus sheker, then it makes no difference that the psul of a ben chalutz is only made a rabbanan. The bottom line is that these Edim testified falsely, and we're not the only one that says so. If you look in Rav Kvega Tshuva Kufayin test, you'll see the same thing, and it's brought down in the new Chadashos, the Chedushim Rabbi Akiva, the Chadashos, in the beginning of Malkis. it makes no difference that a psul d'Rabbanan has no standing min Torah. False testimony was offered. Now, but for the Ritva, who in the beginning of malkis writes that for falsely testifying that a kohen is ben chluza, there is no malkis, we say that the Ritva, now, the Ritva, we don't know if he holds like the Ramban that there is no sasser, there is a loy sasser. We say that the Ritva holds that the aveira of Eidim Zomimim is the hazama, the intention, the conspiracy to do harm to the victim. And since min Torah there is no psul of ben chalutza, then there was no harm. There was no adverse effect in being a ben chalutza. In summation, if the hazama is the machayev, then the adverse effect is the machayev. The effect, and if it's only a psul d'Rabbanan, a psul d'Rabbanan can't be a machayev. But if the eidus sheker is the machayev, then a psul d'Rabbanan is only the means for there to be a false eidus. Therefore, eidus ben chalutza is machayev malkis, even if being a ben chalutza has no standing in the Torah. It's still a gemara din, and it's still an eidus sheker. We return to the case of Eidim who testified that someone sure killed a man and is chayav to pay kaifer. And then they were found to be zomimim. They don't pay kaifer. And what about malkis, the Ramban? And malkis was the malkis, the Ramban and the Rambam. The Ramban gives us a reason why there won't be an onish to pay kaifer. The Gemara says because kufar kapar, but he explains it better. He says that kaifer is not a payment to pay for the loss of the life of the man that was gored, but rather serves as a kapara for the owner of the animal who was negligent. Really, the owner deserves misa b'dei shemayim for allowing his animal to kill several times, but instead he makes a kaifer payment. Then says the Ramban, Tana's the Ramban, the testimony of the Eidim never really generated the kaifer payment. For when it comes to bidei shemayim, there is no trial necessary, for shemayim ruled for a misa and a kaifer payment already without the help of the testimony of the false Eidim. They don't need Eidim. So now when he comes along and he says, "Oh, there's a chi of kaifer," he's not making the chi of kaifer. So therefore, there is no kasha zone. So therefore, there's no malkis. Okay, now why doesn't this argument carry any weight for the Rambam? The Rambam says there is a malkis. There is no kasha zomam, fine. But why isn't there a malkis? Like our previous explanation will account for the difference between the Rambam and the Ramban in this matter also. Their positions in this matter aligns with their view as to exactly what is the aveira of Edim Zomimim. If the aveira and mechayev of einish kasha zomim is the conspiracy to adversely affect the victim, as was the position of the Ramban previously, then we must find an adverse effect that was generated by the Eidim. And based on the reason of the Ramban, there was none. It wasn't the testimony of these false Eidim at all, because all is already decided when it comes to an onish on the level of shemayim. It might be the case that they let us know, but they did not generate the chi of kaifer. The Rambam's position, as we have maintained previously, is that the false testimony is the aveira of the Edim Zomimim. If so, they certainly did lie in their testimony, which earns them a malkis, as in all cases where kasha zomim cannot be executed. And the argument of the Ramban won't hold, because there was harm in their testimony. They had Bezin declare a kaifer payment upon the victim. It doesn't help to argue that they didn't generate the chi of kaifer. It was already decided min shemayim without their help. The Eidim don't have to, according to the Rambam, that the chiv is the eidus, the false eidus. The Eidim don't have to generate the harm. They simply offer false testimony that is harmful. And it was harmful. For even if we discount the fact that it is not really kaifer, the victim, because the victim really he's not chayav kaifer. The victim would have had to pay money undeservedly, according to the Gemara din that was decided. So Mela was harmful, and they did lie. So therefore, they're chayav kasha zomim, but you can't give kasha zomim. Fine, so you give malkis. Why can't you give them a kasha zomim for causing a money outlay? Because the answer is because Bezin thinks it's a kapora, in which case, if it's a kapora, we never force payment. There's a mamashkanin. So they were mechayev these Eidim to make a chiyuv that they never have to pay if they don't want it. There's no. So what kind of kasha zomim can there be? Give a chiyuv to the Eidim, and if they don't want it, they don't have to pay. And so there is no malkis, there is no kasha zomim. This is actually I didn't say this far. Or Shimon didn't say this far. It's actually a ritva and Makstaf Beis Divrei Maskal Taner Abonon, and in the Bamsa Dvorov over there, it's the Havali Kusha. He says over there, Lomelo Yishalmu Askum Shahayu Reitzel Lechayev Anodin. Okay, you can look it up over there. But if the Hazoma is the Mechayev, then generating a Chiv Kaifer is the Mechayev. And they never generate a Chiv Kaifer. Even if it's true. They didn't do it, it's Minashamayim. We will have more to say in regard to different matters of the dinim of Edim Zomimim in part 2, in Yirtzeh Hashem.